again, the magic of positive thinking. We're troubleshooting, we're staying patient, and we're thinking positive through these challenges.
Let's go for it. It's always unique and authentic. And
authenticity, my friend.
Yeah, let's just do it.
You're watching Life is Life for Everyone with Chris and Ace, a speakeasy conversation brought to you by CooleyConservatives.com.
Welcome to another episode of Life is Life for Everyone. My buddy Ace is here. Dana Hour, the man of the hour. How are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm pretty good. I got a special suntan where the sun, you can see it on my bald head. So
well done.
Yeah, I've been working a lot outside lately. So here at the house.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, good for you, man. Oh, you know what? Before we get into the content of today, I do want to talk to the listeners out there and just thank you all so very much. I put the call out the other day that the video monitor that I use here was starting to fade on me. It was like, let me describe it to you folks who maybe have technology problems of your own. So the screen, it wasn't bright. Half of it was like partially bright. The other half was just like black. So it's one of these situations where the hardware is like 20 years old. I think this is an old monitor I've been using, and it's just fading. Its heart is about to go. And so I put out the call. I told you all about it the other day, and I checked my bank account, and sure enough, there was enough donations, enough tips to get a new one. So now I am looking at a crisp and clear display. So thank you all very much for all of your tips. You can always buy me a coffee. That's the best way to tip us here for our efforts. And again, thank you all so very much for your tips. That's what keeps this operation running.
Yeah, that's wonderful. What a blessing.
Amen.
God provides, And
he provides the right people listening to this podcast at the right time. It just all works out beautifully.
Yeah. Being that it is a hobby, and you have a lot more than just Life is Life for Everyone. For if there's anyone listening that's just specifically tuned into our podcast together, I mean, Chris does a lot of other work. Active work in locally, in politically, civically. He's just so busy. He's as busy as I am, and I'm a busy guy. So, but he's technically busy, and I could see him, ruining or wearing out a monitor with how often he works on that computer. So yes,
honestly though, this one took about 15 or 20 years, so I'm impressed. The hardware is getting better and better as we go.
Awesome. Well, if there's anyone that I know that provided a coffee tip, thank you for taking care of my friend Chris. That helps a lot. So Chris, I've had a lot of experiences in my life, in regards to the difference between positive thinking and negative thinking. And, what we speak out of our mouths a lot of times comes into fruition. It comes true. And, I've had several experiences recently that, have put me in front of individuals, who, whether it's how they were brought up, and we can speak on that a little bit more towards the end. The actual genetics involved with why a person dwells more negatively or even positively, and so we got an interesting theme for today's podcast, and I've got some biblical scripture that I can share that I found through my research, and hopefully people will come away from this today that they'll have a different viewpoint on and maybe catch themselves when they find themselves getting into a negative frame of mind, and they know that they just like that they can switch that and
Yeah.
turn it into a positive. So
I think what you just said there is the most important thing, the best takeaway for a lot of people. Because, and again, I mean, timeliness. I've been getting deeper and deeper into this political election season, and just like you said, I'm starting to recognize those moments when I'm kind of triggering into negativity and I want
hmm
to pull myself back into being in a positive mode. I guess the idea that I think about it is I want to express my opinions with love instead of like how wrong someone might be, how right I know I am kind of a thing. It sounds arrogant and weird, but it's like that's how I think about it. Like I would rather come across positively about a positive affirmation about what I believe and why I think, for example, the American principles, that how we were founded. I'm a big believer in that stuff, and
hmm
instead of ragging on someone for not believing it, I'd rather focus on why I do believe it and the positivity. Does that make sense to you?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. It's so easy to fall into the trap of believing and being so, serious in regards to your beliefs. And then when someone comes along, they're exact opposite of what you believe. It's so easy to fall into that trap of argument and,
Yeah,
division and chaos and, all the negative that comes with it. And today's political situations that are out there, oh, I could be way, way more rebellious online on social media, but I've got family that keeps me a little bit in check,
yeah,
tells me when I'm getting a little bit too serious about it. And, it's we have to fight. We have to fight for what we believe in for America, I believe, but and I, it's just it's so easy to get pulled into the trap and
yeah.
saying negative things to other people, about
Yeah,
them.
I'm not sure if this is the right time to bring it up or not, but when you just said that, it reminded me of one of St. Paul's famous scriptures where he talks about fighting the good fight. And I know a lot of people who focus on the fight part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe what we need to do is refocus people back on the good part of that. The good
Yeah,
fight, fight the good fight. It's not about the fight, it's about the good fight. I don't know. Does that make sense?
it does. Yeah. Let's see if I can bring up, this scripture and help it to, lead us into more of a serious, deep
Yeah.
dive into this topic. So I, if anybody wants to follow along, it's Proverbs 18:21. And I just summarized from one of the I think it was New English version or one of them, I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm looking at the
But
NIV version on mine.
NIV, yeah, the New International Version. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. And the verse reminds us that words carry tremendous influence,
Mm,
and choose words that give life rather than harm. So,
yeah.
yeah, it's so easy to break into that cycle of trying, having a cause and trying so desperately to change people's minds in how they're thinking, especially in today's climate, and just one wrong word, can
Hmm.
spark a an anger or any number of different you know uh, emotions in regards to in negative, and pretty soon you're saying things to perfect strangers on Facebook that you aren't paying attention, you're not being patient with the static, and you're saying things to strangers that definitely uh you know aren't giving life, they're giving harm.
Yeah. Now, there's so many temptations out there too. Like you
Yeah.
mentioned, Facebook, the social medias. It's really really easy to get
Mhm.
sucked into that rabbit hole and end up in a negative framework, mind frame, I should say, mindset. But man, it that is hard. I mean, as a computer nerd like me, it took me a while, to discipline myself not to engage in that kind of thing. But that's the other part of it too, that these things are complicated, right? You
Yeah.
can go into a thread of social media with great intentions and start and give your opinion about the way things work or however, but then someone comes in and what do they call that term? Like a troll. Somebody
Yeah.
comes in and just like throws a grenade into the conversation, and the next thing you know, you're getting pulled right into it. The hardest
Mhm.
thing in the world is to not get tempted by that and just stay
Mhm.
on the course with a positive message instead of getting pulled into the gutter with a negative one.
Yeah, you're way better at the avoidance of all of that than I am. I get sucked in pretty quickly and easily, because just the passion of what I believe. It's hard not to fight for it. You know. Um,
And that's why it's so tempting, because
hmm
we have very strongly held beliefs and the other
hmm
side has strongly held beliefs too. And
Yeah.
that conflict, it can be positive if it you can have an uncomfortable conversation with someone and walk away actually respecting each other,
hmm
or you can go into that uncomfortable conversation yelling and screaming and nobody
Yeah.
wins.
No. No. I I find myself blocking
Yeah,
trolls and bots. I
there
bet
you
I've
go.
blocked thousands because I'm not going to be able to change their mind, and I don't want to hear
Yeah.
their ranting and raving. So,
And that
you know,
that is a really good point. I mean, there's tools in these social media. I hate to say that some people are just a lost cause, but to your point, for your own mental health and your own faith life, let's just eliminate that temptation. Sometimes I do it all the time. There are days when I won't even touch social media. I'm just
yeah,
not in the right frame of mind for it.
yeah. Being careful of what you're allowing to come into your ears, but also your eye sockets.
Yeah,
What we're reading, what we're seeing, is an important part of whether a person is going to lead a positive life or if it's going to take you down rabbit holes that end up inevitably negative for you and everyone around you. And
yeah.
the power of positive thinking, it reminds me of a book that I read. I was a teenager when I actually got my hands on it. Before I married Jackie, I was involved with Amway, the network
Hmm.
marketing company, and thinking that was going to be, I was going to become a, wealthy, successful businessman in this venture. And what ended up coming out of that, the positive thing that came from all that is all of the positive books and speakers and rallies and everything that I attended. I acquired and I sucked up all of this positive stuff. And one of the books was The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale.
Hmm.
And now that author, he published that in 1952, right? 52.
It's been
Over
around.
over 5 million copies have been sold worldwide,
Yeah,
and it's translated in over 40 languages.
yeah.
So talk,
Well,
talk
and
about
think about this, like you said, he wrote that in the 50s.
yeah,
All of the successful business entrepreneurs throughout the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, they were all reading that and
everyone.
they took it to heart too.
Yeah, every one of them. And so you got to think, maybe a book like that for a person who is struggling and constantly stuck in that negative mindset, a book like that would really help to turn the switch
Yeah.
and change their attitude about their life, and about their motives and their dreams and their goals. And so there's many other ones. How to Win Friends and Influence People comes to mind.
Yep.
um that
Classic
little
business one.
Yeah, that little book that I quote sometimes to friends. It's called Run to the Roar. And
Hmm.
it's about a gazelle and a big old mangy lion, and then a pride of the female lions hiding in the bushes behind the gazelle. And the big old lion walks out in the middle of the savannah, and he's roaring, and it scares the gazelle. The gazelle runs away right into its demise. All of the
Mm.
young, all the female hunter lions are right there to harvest that gazelle. And so that little book has some background meaning, towards run towards your fears rather than, you know, um, running. If it would have just ran towards that mangy old lion, it would have been
Hmm.
easily able to outmaneuver it, and it would have lived. So instead, it ran away from its fear, and it to its demise. So the power of that, that parable, so to speak, the Bible's full of them too. The
Hmm.
all of the stories, of triumph and victory, and you know, there's a ton of them. So on the positive affirmations side of this thing, um, what we speak. I'm just going to read something quick. So
Okay.
positive affirmations are short phrases you repeat aloud or in your head to help build self-worth and resilience. And they can help reduce stress and negative self-talk. Try saying
Hmm.
them in the present tense and making them personal to what you're dealing with. Do you do anything like that at your work, Chris?
That is a good question. We talk about this kind of stuff at work. We're really blessed at where I work. We have life coaches,
Mm,
and once a week, and actually I take it back. Well, once a week we have like little lessons about how to deal with whatever. But then like every month we have essentially little 1 hour workshops that we can participate in. One of the things that I was thinking about though, when you just said that last part is, and I was just telling my wife about this last week, how I'm very patient with all the people around me, the people on my team and everything, but I'm not that patient with myself.
mm,
I, and like you were talking about the self talk kind of thing. That's something I got to work on because I
mm,
I am super patient with everybody around me except myself.
mm.
And it's just like if I worked for myself, I would quit.
Yeah, it's so our self-talk in that specific situation, it would be easy to say something in your mind every morning when you woke up, that
Yeah.
today, I'm going to be patient with myself, or I'm going to think before I speak today. There's just hundreds of different, ways
Yeah.
to that we can
I like
improve.
that idea of adding that to my morning prayer, just
Yep.
praying for a good day, but also praying for myself to have the patience to, well, be patient with myself,
Yeah.
that I'm still learning and growing. And sometimes it's a bumpy road.
Yeah. Maybe do a little deep dive AI search on that topic, and then what suggestions there would be. And
Yeah.
I you could end up with a nice paragraph of, to
Yeah.
add to your prayers, to incorporate into your life. And I should do the same thing. I mean,
I will say though, like over the last 30 years that I've been really doing daily Bible readings and stuff, that has helped tremendously. When you start looking at life through the eyes of faith instead of, whatever egotistical kind of way of looking at life, it does change your mindset tremendously.
Mm. Back in those days when I was trying to build a network marketing type business, and they suggested back then that you should have a vision board or a collage of cutout pictures
Mm-hmm.
of things that you would like to someday achieve or have, or go and a new house, or a house,
Mm-hmm.
a specific kind of car, and all the material things, of course. But then you could just add on to that vision board, this improved self-talk. You could put
Yeah.
a text of something that's sitting on that board, and then you put that on your refrigerator, right? Or you put
Mm-hmm.
pictures in the refrigerator. Or so seeing what you want to achieve, and then hearing it come out of your mouth by speaking it, and then talking with others, about that, and being in on the same plane, so to speak, as others. They all have theirs too. So you're in a
Mm-hmm.
group of positive people, so you're reaffirming it with those other people. Maybe you're praying about it as well, so all of those factors come into play. So I think back on those days, and then I did some of that with Jackie as an newly married, and sharing our dreams, sharing our goals together. And lo and behold, here we built a beautiful home of our dreams. Right? We
Right
had
on.
a family, 2 children. We some Well, I didn't get the Bradley GT kit car that I had there. I didn't get that, but I changed my goal. I didn't really want that afterwards. And so there's a good point.
Yeah,
Something
I'm sorry, go ahead. Finish your
some
thought.
things that you don't get. That's your goals and your dreams. Maybe you didn't really want them that bad. I wanted to have a published work, and I wrote my books. All of these things were things that I had written down back when I was a teenager. So
That's
it's
awesome.
it's it's pretty powerful.
Oh
Um,
yeah, it's definitely powerful. And again, here I am bragging about where I work again. We
yep.
actually have what we call a dream board. It's on the hallway at our headquarters in West Bend, and
Mm,
everybody can post they try to encourage us to like have a drawing of it, but it's supposed to be three things that you're supposed to put on the dream board. Something like material possession that you want to be able to obtain someday, like you're saying, like a really nice car or whatever it
mhm,
happens to be. A house is a great one.
yeah.
The second thing is an experience that you want, that you're dreaming about, achieving. And then the third thing is like a professional goal. And just like you were saying, it it's a way to inspire each other and build momentum toward the future of, positive, really positive thinking and achievements that we can
Yeah.
all kind of chip in and share those experiences together. It really is. It's a great place to work, man. I'm telling you.
That's awesome. I don't. I'm the polar opposite of that. In truck driving and in the concrete business. But you know what?
Yeah.
I have that same feeling about my employer and my job. And it's the job. I've been at this job the longest out of any employment that I've ever had. So we've talked about that in past episodes, how
Yep.
you know doing something that you enjoy, and it takes a little bit of failure in order to find what's truly right for yourself. You try different things, and you learn that you can either look at those as those past jobs as if that isn't what I wanted to do and I hated it, or or you can look at them like, well, that led me to this one, and that one led me to
Mm-hmm.
this one. So is the glass half full or is the glass half empty? You know,
Yeah.
the pessimism and versus optimism. So we both know individuals. We could probably, if we sat back right now and thought, who do I know that is constantly bringing up the negative?
Mm-hmm.
Who do I know that struggles with that, or constantly critiques, or always has a better idea, or I've done that better, right? Or one-upmanship, and
Yeah.
right, and
Yep.
and we all have people like that in our lives, and love them to death.
Sometimes we are those people.
You know, could be. I guess I point a finger and I can point three back at myself as well.
Right on.
But with that in mind, working on that, trying not to be that way, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, like you said before, catching yourself,
Yeah,
finding if you're at that trigger point and like, okay, let's rein that in and do it a little differently
yeah,
this time.
yeah. It's hard to ask for help and then um, take that help. If the help comes in a way that is criticizing and negative,
Oh yeah.
that I'm doing it wrong,
Yeah.
or I'm not doing it their way, or a different way. It's difficult to sit back with patience and handle that properly. Uh,
Yeah,
so
and that is a good point. These things are not easy, and I
yeah.
know I fail at this quite frequently, but I also know that I am continuing to learn and grow and get better at it.
hmm hmm I think how you're raised has a lot to do with it. My
Oh, good
parents,
point.
my grandma, even my brothers, they there's some negativity, yeah, of course, in every family, but for the most part, my parents, hardworking. You want something, you're going to need to work for it. You
Mhm.
need to go after it and get it. Um, the power of the mind it's incredible, because you can just think every day about something, and all of a sudden you sit back and realize, wow, that just happened, and without a whole lot of effort. It's almost like
Mm.
you cosmically have created that into your existence. It's a weird phenomenon. I know
Yeah.
that we could go down all kinds of rabbit holes with that one, but the idea
Well,
that
that is an interesting concept too, like you're saying. I mean, what is the term I'm thinking of? I've heard someone at work talk about this too. The body won't go where the mind can't
Mm,
imagine, or something like
bingo.
that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, I've had specific things happen, and and suddenly realized, wow, I thought about this way back then, and now it just happened, you know. So, then you get into, God's will. You wonder,
Yeah.
are all of these good things that are happening, just blessings from God? They, you put the work in. I haven't had God come down and, you know, help me put tile in my bathroom. He doesn't do the actual physical labor. I still end up doing it, but I sit back after I'm done with a project like that, and I go, wow, that was what Jackie and I envisioned. We put it up a plan, we tweaked it while we were doing it, but we had the general idea years ago about what we had just built together, and it came true.
Yeah.
So how does that work? I just don't, I can't quite put my wrap my head around it, that you could think of something 5, 10, 15 years ago, and then all of a sudden you realize that it just happened.
Yeah.
So,
It is interesting you bring that up too, because it reminds me of a conversation I had with someone last week. It was about the idea of like where technology is versus what people were thinking years ago. And I
mm,
and I say, well, you remember Star Trek? Like, what was that in the '60s? And they had those little communicator devices. And I said, for whatever reason, that inspired somebody
yeah,
because all of a sudden you started to see flip phones in the '90s.
yeah,
So people, and it, like you said, I mean, there's like this whole magic about how God gives people the right blessings, the right time, the right inspiration to do these
mhm,
things. It is amazing.
yeah, yeah. And then speaking it into fruition, so that's the power of prayer.
Yeah,
So,
right on.
people, people have heard that, the healing power of Jesus, right? And people hear about people becoming healed from prayer.
Hmm.
Yet it's a pretty unknown phenomenon, really, for most of us. Some of us experience it more closely than others, but there's almost like a disbelief too, that, coincidence or whatever,
Coincidence, exactly.
you know, but, the power of the mind, and then, if you get that mixed in with God's will,
Hmm.
that's a powerful tool.
You just nailed it. That's something that I've been thinking about. Is like we've been having some conversations about energy policy in our Wisconsin
Mhm.
politics and blah blah blah. And one of the things that occurred to me is like we have the greatest energy possible known to man. It's like the Bible, God's word. Let's plug into that energy source every now and then because that is a huge energy source. It creates inspiration. It creates, ideas that I never would have thought of. After a
Yeah,
good Bible study, all of a sudden great ideas are popping into my head.
yeah, yeah. If you're mixing positives, the inspiration that comes from that is so powerful. And
Mhm.
I get on shifts or swings where I'll just get this creative juices flowing, and I'll pop out 5 or 6 new ideas about something, and wonder where they all came from. Well, why don't we just believe that they're just God inspired?
It's right.
They don't just pop into your head for out of the blue, I'm not that guy,
Same, same. I'm not
So,
that creative.
yeah. Yeah, so the ideas that come to me sometimes, in my writing, for sure, and sometimes, in my actions, and all of a sudden there's an opportunity that God takes advantage of, and sometimes in my prayers for others, whether, openly with them or silently to myself for their service, for their benefit. Where does all that come from? You know, it comes from my creator.
Yeah. It's that
I'm just,
ultimate power source.
yeah, it is an ultimate power source.
Mhm.
Better than the fusion in the DeLorean.
Yeah, that's
What
right.
what was that
The
again?
flux
The
capacitor.
more powerful than the flux capacitor. Yeah. So, we talked a little on that genetics, how you were raised, so an you look at um a child, and that child's parents are stuck in the horrors of addiction, and their life is, topsy-turvy because the responsible parties in that child's life aren't thinking straight.
Yeah.
They're just not. And so they grow up with that negative influence and very little teaching of what, you know, non-using parents would have provided that child, right?
Yeah. That lack of
And
stability.
yeah, so here we
It's
are
like an
with
ongoing roller coaster ride.
here we are with generations of individuals that grew up with less than par, upbringing, and the world is showing that at this time. There's a
Yeah.
there's a lot of things going on in the country right now, and there's the only thing that's going to fix it is prayer. You know,
Mm-hmm.
what's it called when you intercession?
Yeah.
God intercedes on the people's behalf, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, and
but
usually through other people as well. I mean, God puts the right
mhm,
people in our lives at the right time, exactly when we need them.
yeah, yeah. You got past individuals like Billy Graham, and different people who have influenced the masses over time. You know, um, we could use the right person right now to make that difference in the masses. Somebody that could really, catch everyone with
Mm.
that triggered response, that triggered message that would get everybody thinking,
Yeah.
and it, whether that
I
happens.
I like to think though that it's a little bit different than that. Here's where I'm coming from in my head. Let me see if I can articulate this. I'm such a nerd. This is kind of a computer sciencey thing. In the early days of computer science, there was a lot of like massive servers, and all
Mhm.
the computing power was in the server. And then you had a terminal that would access the data remotely, but the server was the central location for everything. But then just like recently in the last 10 or 15 years, a lot of that has changed where it's all distributed power or distributed like computing. For
Mhm.
example, we call it microservices. Like if we're building new software, it's very, very rare that we build one monolithic thing that does everything. It's very rare these days. That's the way they used to do it all the time. But now what we do is called microservices. So if you want to send an email, there's a little microservice that's called to help you get the right address out of your address book. Then there's a different microservice that help you dictate the message that you want to send in an email. Then there's another little microservice that helps you actually transmit the message, wherever it's going to. So I kind of think the microservices model, where we've got all these individuals in our lives that are part of the thread taking us back to where we need to be.
Mm. Okay.
That's where my head goes when you talk about that. Instead
So
of just
you,
one person as like
yeah.
shepherding all of us, which I mean
Mhm.
only Jesus Christ can do that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But there are thousands of people in all of our lives who have little bits and pieces of that. Does that
Mm.
make sense, or am I completely off
Yeah.
my rocker?
No, that's what's happening. I mean, we are so influenced by, you know, really, you think about it, you'd think it would be millions of people, but it's really not. You're influenced by probably hundreds, maybe,
Yeah. Yeah, you
right?
think about it on a day-to-day basis, maybe half a dozen, maybe a dozen
Yeah,
a
yeah,
day.
yeah, a day, maybe. Yeah. So are you hanging around with positive 12 or, 16 people
Yeah.
or are you hanging around with people who are constantly in the negative affirmations, and
And that's
they
important
don't
to consider.
and they don't have dreams and goals, and they don't strive for service to others, and
Mm.
they're not helping anything but themselves. And so who are you hanging with? Are you going to the bar every night after work? Are you
Yeah.
hanging, are you are you hanging on Facebook with strangers that are constantly fighting with you? Are you is your work negative, where you're constantly in
Mm.
push me, pull me, tug of war with all of your coworkers? There. So yeah, that's the whole theme of today's podcast, I believe, is trying to turn the switch and purposefully, trying to achieve more positives in our lives. And
Yeah.
you're not going to do that where you people, places, and things that are negative.
Right.
So,
Well, and,
we,
and that makes a good point too about the idea of the choices that we make, the people we hang out with. But also, I think the most important thing that you said is that mindset. If
Mhm,
you can take that mindset, if you can enhance that mindset, maybe you do have a bunch of friends who are negative, but then again, maybe you can be the one to shift your mindset and help others do the same.
mhm, mhm. Yeah. I mean, knowing someone that's always frowning, always sad, always depressed,
Right.
being the
And like you
one,
said before, we all know these people.
yeah,
Sometimes we are them.
being the one person in that person's life that's cheery and uplifting and, smiling and, trying to be positive. And, you know, e- either they absolutely hate you, they think they hate you because you're always positive,
Yeah.
and everything's always going great, for you. But I think I'd
Yeah.
rather be that person at that point. I just don't want to
And that
fall
that
in the
does bring up something that I have seen. It seems like it's growing. It's this mindset of envy. People who look at each other and like, oh, I wish I had what you have. Blah blah blah. Well, if you
Yeah,
were willing to work for it, you could have it too. There's nothing
yeah,
stopping you.
good point.
Instead of
They,
being envious about it, put down a plan and start working for it.
yeah, they don't realize what goes into, what another person has obtained or achieved. They don't
Yeah.
know the
But that
fight.
envy is such a negative. I mean,
Yeah,
that's like the root of a lot of
yeah,
negativity.
was one of the seven deadly sins, I believe. So,
Yeah, I think you're right.
yeah, yeah. Um, so I was thinking about an experience that I had. I was in the car business, and the car salespeople and the managers and all, they they're always trying to come up with the next, how to break the code and how to end up
Right.
being successful at what they're doing. And so I went to that Tony Robbins. I went up in Minneapolis. I was living in West Bend at the time, and pretty much not the whole sales force, but the most of us and the management took part in Tony Robbins's uh, seminar up in Minneapolis. And the neuro linguistics programming, NLP is what it's called. And
Hmm.
I don't know if you know who Tony Robbins is, don't you?
I know his name, but the neural
Oh,
linguistics is new to me. I don't
yeah,
think I've heard that term.
yeah. It's a mind over matter type of a situation where you're snapping your fingers back into a different posture, and you're changing your mindset. You're on the car lot. You would change your whole persona before you push the door open to go walk out to greet a new customer on the lot, you know, and you would go
Interesting.
out. you would go out there with the mindset that this person is going to purchase a vehicle from me today. Your whole everything would be built around that. So I'm up in the cities with probably 150 other people, some of my coworkers, and by the end of the seminar, every one of those people, basically 2 by 2, ran down the hallway of this auditorium, ran outside to witness a red glowing fire pit, and people lined up, single file in front of this. And Chris, I actually walked barefooted over this like 7 foot long by 2 feet wide bed of hot burning coals. And
Wow.
I did this after his seminar. He had our minds so programmed that we were able to do this without getting burned, right? And I think there was 1 or 2 individuals that ended up with like they celebrated at the end of the pit too quickly, and they didn't allow the people that were there to kind of help check their feet and stuff. And so they moved away from the line, and they ended up with a coal maybe was between their feet, their toes, and they got a little burned, right? But there was only like 2 people out of the 150 people, and no one didn't do it. Everyone did it. So the power of the mind there, to be able to accomplish something like that and not be harmed, pretty
incredible
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
You tell that story to some people, and they just, they think you're pulling their leg and you're you're just telling stories, but it happened. And it just makes me realize how powerful it is. How do you help other people to change, to get the benefit of utilizing their mind more positively?
Yeah.
This Tony Robbins.
That is a good point.
Yeah. You should Google him and check out different things that he does and has done. I mean, to most people,
he's been doing a lot of those kinds of seminars for quite some time now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That was in the late 80s. So, it just amazing, but people would discount it as, witchcraft or, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just the power of the mind. My grandma.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
The power of the mind. Well, like I said before, that whatever that saying is, I'm probably destroying it, but the body won't go where the mind hasn't been, or something like that. But that is a great indicator of, once you set your mind to something, your mind is a lot more powerful than your body. I remember when I was in Marine Corps officer candidate school, and I thought, oh, there's no way I'm ever going to get like a 10-minute mile when I'm running, these 3-mile PFT physical fitness tests. But I set my mind to it, and I ended up doing it. Your mind will take you will take your body exactly where you demand it to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Guys in basic training, climbing that rope and jumping over that barrier, and, back through a puddle, crawling underneath, ropes or wires, and, that collaborative group setting, everybody's doing it and everybody's excited, and you don't want to not be a part of that, so it's like,
well, not only that, but one of the other things, like as you're running and doing all these things, and they're calling out these songs, and it's kind of, that's part of the training. It's kind of part of the mental training about it. Mm-hmm. One of them, I will never forget it, and I keep repeating it over and over again. Mind over matter. If you don't mind, then it don't matter. The
And you
power
learn,
of the mind.
yeah, you learn
You
that.
can eat whatever you want to eat. If you're not thinking about it, you can eat garbage and you won't even care because you don't mind. It don't matter.
Yeah, yeah, you learn that in your training in
Yeah.
the
And I
military.
think that's all part of it. I think that mental training, that in tune with, physical fitness and training, it is pretty remarkable.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I wish I would have been able to go through in the military. So medically, I think I mentioned that to you once before too. Just couldn't get past the physical because of a skin condition. So that
Yeah.
the eczema and psoriasis, and they wouldn't let me get in the military.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
really,
I ended up getting kicked out when I broke my shoulder. So
yeah, yeah,
I didn't get to serve active duty, but yeah, I mean, at least I had the experience to go through some of the training.
yeah. I wanted
Okay.
to read
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
the difference between optimism and pessimism. Optimists tend to see opportunities and focus on the positive outcomes, even in difficult situations. They are more likely to say, "Hey, I still have a lot," when observing a half full glass. Pessimists focus on limitations and problems. They often see the glass as lacking or almost empty, emphasizing what could go wrong or what they've lost. Yeah.
Mm.
So
Well,
be
and
optimistic.
what makes me think is I, I've been both. I mean, there
Yeah.
are good days and bad days. There are days when nothing's going right. I don't know what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. And then
Yeah.
there's good days where everything's going great. Magic happens. I don't know. I guess that my point is, I get the feeling that everybody has those,
Yeah.
opportunities when we do experience both sides.
Yeah. We're not perfect creatures. There's only one that can be in that perfection zone. I speaking of that, so maybe I could close with a bit of a salvation type prayer. And in Romans 10:9 and 10, it says, "Declare with your mouth Jesus is Lord, and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead. You will be saved. For it is with the heart that you believe and are justified, and it is with your mouth that you profess your faith and are saved." So even there, it's talking about the power of positive thinking. You're professing it with your mouth and believing it in your heart, and you're saved. How easy is that? And yet people fight that so much,
It
you know?
it is it is a mystery. It is a very deep mystery that a lot of people haven't figured out yet.
Yeah.
And I think the way that one of our pastors was talking about it, it might have even been Pastor Mark, that I've heard say this too. The idea of, like, all of the reading, all of the Bible study that you read and retain in your head or whatever, until it actually reaches your heart, it won't change you. It's like
Mm.
you can memorize the entire Bible,
Mhm.
and eventually it will reach your heart. And for, like I said to a friend, 30 years I've been going every day into the Bible. It takes time, but God will talk back to you, and it will reach that heart eventually. And when it does, you start to see everything completely different.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah. Just, you know, f- it's, it's like, you know, rolling the dice. If I'm to gamble a little bit, it's either, heaven or the alternative. It's either the higher power or the lower power. In my knowledge and experience of that, you know, the odds are much greater with the higher power. And if I'm going to gamble, wouldn't I rather just take the easier, softer way and, say
I
that
don't know if it's easier though,
say,
Ace.
say that say
Sometimes
that
it's a lot
salvation
harder.
prayer. if you say that salvation prayer, you with your mouth,
Oh, yeah, good point.
and you believe it in your heart, and that Jesus died on the cross for you, that you're a sinner, and that confess it
Yeah,
and say it. It's done. It's done. Now I'm still a sinner, Chris. You can prefer, you too.
same.
We are sinners, but the difference between you and I, and maybe someone listening today, is they haven't received Jesus in their heart, and all it takes is that simple salvation prayer. That's it.
Yeah,
That's how
good point.
simple it is. And then after that, well, you still sin. Unfortunately, I still do it. I still sin,
Yeah.
but I'm saved. I know where I'm heading. My path is fixed. So that's how we
Who
should
was
close.
it? Somebody said, how did it go? God uses broken twigs to make a straight line to heaven,
Oh my
or
God.
something like that. And I
Yeah,
thought, yeah, I'm about as broken a twig as you can get.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Bunch of broken toys. That's what we are.
Yeah,
And
filling
only,
up the playpen there. Yeah.
yeah,
No,
only,
that is a good point. Yeah, I can't emphasize it enough. I think the idea that, like, that that blessing from the Holy Spirit of accepting that into our hearts, like you were saying, and it honestly, it just changes everything, because
yeah,
you already know the victory's won.
yeah,
Now it's a matter of being joyful about it and trying to bring as many of your friends with you.
yeah. So thinking, bringing it all back around again, our folks that are in the constant negative, pessimistic, are they just lacking the grace and mercy of our Lord Jesus Christ? In many times, maybe, because
That's probably part of it.
I don't know of too many Christian friends of mine who are true believers, who have, said that salvation prayer out loud and believe it in their heart, that are stuck in that power of negative thinking. I just don't know that many people, that
Yeah,
right?
that is a good point. When I think about that, a lot of the people that come to mind are not Christian.
Yeah.
The negative folks are the ones who, yeah,
Yeah.
they're just not the ones that are on doing daily Bible studies and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So knowing that, and still being in the trenches, being around people that aren't saved, with the heart and the hope that, you'll be a mirror, and
Yeah,
somehow or another God will use you to influence them.
perfect way to put it.
Right. I don't know. I refuse not, I refuse to isolate myself completely in the world. I'm in the
Right.
trench. I'm in the trenches more than most church goers are,
Yep.
you know. So, but
Well, and that is a great point too. I mean, this is your mission. You know, you have this in your heart. You take it to work with you. It does
mhm,
spread.
yeah,
You may never know exactly how, but I'm positive it does.
the seeds are planted, and they're the
Yeah,
they're,
exactly.
they're his seeds. They're not my seeds.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and
and
what is that scripture too that talks about, like, you don't know who's watering it, you don't know who's fertilizing it, but at
yeah,
least you're there to help plant that seed.
hmm yeah, that's a good place, to wrap her up. And I mean, if I can speak directly to a viewer or a listener today, if you're you're looking for a higher power, and you're unsure of where to find it, you can certainly share mine. He's got huge shoulders, and he loves you, and he cares. He loves me, and he cares for us, whether you believe in him or not. That's the cool thing about the creator. So, um,
Yeah.
you know, contact me, contact Chris, and let's get you saved. All
Right on.
doing so is like rolling the dice. It's a gamble. Would you rather have that on your side or the alternative? I mean, that's how simple the gamble is. So
Yeah.
the odds are in your favor over here. They're not as much over there. So
Right on.
come and give us a call. What's that talk and text number again, Chris?
Yeah, the talk and text number that people can call and leave a message of any kind. If you want to talk, go ahead and leave a voicemail. If you want to text, you can do that too. But it's 985-465-0443. And if you do the voicemail one, we'd love to play your questions or concerns or feedback on the air, and we'll answer them directly in the next episode.
Yeah. Life is life for everyone with Chris and Ace. Thanks for checking in with us. And don't forget to tap that. Go to Cooley Conservatives and tap that buy me a coffee tip jar, because Chris drinks a lot of coffee.
It takes a lot of coffee to keep this operation running, my friend. God bless you, my friend. Thank you so much.
God bless you. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for checking out this episode. If you like this content, then please visit cooleyconservatives.com and click the Buy Me a Coffee option to leave us a tip. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Truth Social. Oh, and you can get our content in your email inbox once a week by subscribing at cooleyconservatives.com. Thanks again. Take care and God bless.